Hey, we're live here at Cinema Hits and Misses. I'm Dawn.
I'm John.
And I'm Ryan.
And you're tuned in to WMPG 90.9 FM and WMPG.org. Tonight we've got a couple movies. What are we talking about tonight, guys?
So tonight we're talking about Marvel's newest film, Doctor Strange, and we're talking about Mel Gibson's latest debut, Hacksaw Ridge.
And you can call in if you're listening at 780-4909. That's 780-4909, and let us know about your opinions on either Hacksaw Ridge or Doctor Strange.
Yeah, and I know Duke's going to be sitting in with us, and he's just wrapping up his time. So why don't we start off with Hacksaw Ridge?
Sure, yeah, we can do that. So, Hacksaw Ridge is based on a true story and follows the life of Desmond Doss, an army medic who saved 75 lives without even firing a weapon. We start off with young Desmond and his brother Harold climbing a mountain. After taking in the view, the brothers return home to their mother, who is kind and caring, and their father, a World War I veteran and alcoholic. Later that afternoon, when the boys are roughhousing, Desmond takes a brick and swings it at Harold's head, knocking him unconscious. Harold survived the incident, but this was a major moment in Desmond's life that changed him forever. Jump 15 years later, and World War II is in full effect. After Harold enlists in the army, Desmond follows and wants to be a combat medic. When he arrives at boot camp, he refuses to pick up a rifle and wants to be a conscientious objector, which means he just doesn't want to shoot a gun or kill anybody. After struggling through boot camp and court-martial, Desmond is allowed to be in the war. He is assigned to Okinawa, which became known as the bloodiest battle of the war. Now, Hacksaw Ridge was directed by Mel Gibson and stars Andrew Garfield, Teresa Palmer, Hugo Weaving, Luke Bracey, Sam Worthington, and Vince Vaughn. It currently has a 86% on Rotten Tomatoes and is certified fresh, and 96% of audiences liked it.
And a bunch of Australians playing American accents here.
Yeah, that's true.
Except for Vince Vaughn, of course, who's playing an American accent, being an American.
Yeah.
But, wow, this was a pretty visually visceral movie.
Yeah, that's definitely one way to put it. I don't mean to overstate things like this is the best movie, but this is definitely one of the better war movies I've seen in a while. Mm-hmm. I mean, Mel can shoot action well. I thought, how it was shot so well.
Yeah. I mean, personal life aside, getting to his talent of direction, he does these warriors well. I mean, obviously he did Braveheart, he does Suffering well, Apocalypto, and
The
Passion of the Patriot. He brings together characters, and of course the story of Desmond Doss I hadn't heard before, and of course in the trailers you learn about the character. I mean, he was a conscientious objector. He's the first Medal of Honor winner that won as a conscientious objector. So it's this powerful story. Of course, it's an interpretation of his story, and I did enjoy it. I kind of got grossed out at parts because it is pretty grisly in portions.
It's graphic. Definitely gave me like a Saving Private Ryan vibe for sure.
Yeah, and because Doss, of course, was very faithful. I mean, part of his whole duty in the war was that he was, he felt called to serve, but as supporter for his fellow soldiers, he didn't want to pick up a gun. There are some a little bit heavy-handed, as a Mel Gibson religious movie would have. Please God, let me have one, just one more. And actually, later you find out that Doss did something like that, but the way they put this, it does have some of those very heavy Christian images in it, which the guy's a Christian, so I get that. But of course, his detractors may say that. That being said, if you're a war movie fan and you like a picture that will put you into the scenes, this is it.
Yeah, for sure.
So since it's been a while since Mel, has directed, how does this stack up against like Braveheart, The Patriot, Passion of the Christ? What you mentioned?
Apocalypto.
Apocalypto. Yeah. How does
Well, it's in English.
It's in English. Because of how like well Braveheart did and the Patriot did. Do you think he still has got it, or like it's going to take a little time for him to kind of get back at directing?
I think him not being in it
Mm-hmm.
is a good thing for this, for him, the reintroduction of that. I mean, Braveheart, he was, of course, he won the Oscar for
Yep.
that. He also played the lead character. But he's one of the, I think, one of the few people who can write, act, and
Yep.
and
And
direct
direct, yep.
himself. And, you know, Braveheart's one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do love The Patriot as well. This here, the Andrew Garfield character, Desmond Doss, is such a gentle. By the time we see him as an adult, he's a very gentle soul,
Mm-hmm.
very courageous soul. I mean, he goes into boot camp, and his fellow enlistees think he's a coward, and so I think
Did he break out the web shooters?
No, no, but man, the boy can climb. You know, he brings such a humanity to this.
Mm-hmm.
He shows how in boot camp that Doss had to endure not only the stigma of being a weaponless soldier
Mm-hmm.
to the upper command, but his fellow troop, the members in his troop, didn't trust him.
Mm-hmm.
They were beating him up. They were putting obstacles in his way. They wanted him to quit, and he didn't.
Yeah.
Because his convictions were so strong.
Yeah, I mean, you said it well, Don. The story itself is really incredible when you think about it. And okay, now I'm like losing my thought here, but yeah, I did like Andrew Garfield a lot. I thought, you know, he carries most of the movie for sure. I thought the rest of the performance was good. I liked Vince Vaughn actually.
People are so used to seeing Vince Vaughn recently in comedies that you forget that he can also do drama. I mean, his character here, Sergeant Howell, has a lot of the
Is it like dry humor?
Dry humor,
Yeah, yeah.
yes. It's done so well. But this was a time when your commanding officers went from boot camp into battle with you.
Mm-hmm.
So that transition, you know, you can imagine that this guy's looking at Doss thinking, you know, I've got to depend on this guy to save my life, let alone my troops. So Vaughn just brought that together well. And, you know, Hugo Weaving
I
as
thought he was
Doss's
good as well.
dad. You know, again, a little heavy on the Southern accent,
Yeah.
but another
Well, we
Austrian.
can ignore the accent.
We can, but you know, just someone who went into battle World War One, and he's the only one of his peers that came back. So, just bringing that pain in, and you know, now it's, you know, of course, I'm used to Weaving as either Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, or Agent Smith in the Matrix
Yep.
movies, and to see that other element here that, you know, he can bring the anger. I mean, there are times you want to strangle him for being an SOB, but you know, there are times that, wow, this guy went through a lot.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this movie is great. I will say though, now while the beginning is great to like help you understand like why Desmond is like such a pacifist, the beginning is a little bit slow. They like, you know, they put in this romance element, which is true, obviously, but to me, it like in comparison to the rest of the movie, like it, you know, obviously it doesn't fit. But I guess it's just more like it's something to counteract like the horror of war with like this, I guess, sweet, charming thing, even if it is a little corny at times. And, you know, Garfield, like, plays as awkward at times with
He's
that.
very socially awkward, yeah. And then this we're talking about is Hacksaw Ridge, currently playing in theaters. You've got Cinema Hits and Misses. I've got John, Ryan, and Duke just joined us. We're going to be wrapping up on Hacksaw because we've got another movie. But we are live until 8:30 if you want to give us a call at 780-4909. That's 780-4909. Any closing thoughts on Hacksaw?
No, I mean, if you're a fan of horror films, for sure, you're definitely going to enjoy Hacksaw. You just got to push through, like, the first little bit. I think once they get to boot camp, things really start to kick off from there and get more interesting.
Yeah. And off air, Ryan asked about, you know, how the kind of gore factor. I mean, like if you look at a Private Ryan, you kind of get through that first 10 minutes. Okay, you're kind of okay. This does go through, so it does have its rating for a reason. I mean, it does have graphic, grisly, bloody images, and it's there. It doesn't feel.
It doesn't overshadow it.
It doesn't overshadow it. It feels like you're placed in the battlefront, and you understand why. So,
let me ask if I may. I always ask this question of any movie, and maybe you've already answered it before I came in, but. I always want to know, is this a movie I need to see in the theater? Is the cinematography such that it's really not going to be quite the same movie in the small screen if I rent it at home? Should I see this movie in the theater?
If you waited till home, the gore, the deep impact of war may alleviate maybe a little bit. I mean, you'll still see some of the images that you won't forget. You won't be enveloped in it as much. I think if you were looking at these two movies that we're looking at, Hacksaw Ridge and Doctor Strange, and we'll go into Doctor Strange, I would say for me, of the two, it would be Doctor Strange is the must-see. I'm glad I saw Hacksaw in the bigger theater because it just enveloped me. But I think it would do well in home viewing.
Yeah, I could see that, though. I mean, on the scale I use for the free press, which is, it's very... There's only 4 ranks, but to me, it's a must see. Like it's definitely. I think it's worth it because the story itself. To me, I was just wowed by the story. Like it's like I can't. Like the little things you learn about more and more. It's crazy. It's the fact that it's true is just phenomenal. Yeah. So
the lives that this man saved, that pretty incredible. So all right, time for dun dun dun. Ryan's got some Doctor Strange for us.
After a car crash completely destroys the use of his hands, arrogant neurosurgeon Dr. Stephen Strange must travel across the globe for his last hope to help his condition. There he meets the Ancient One, who reveals to him that his world is much smaller than he once thought. Strange is then thrown into the world of sorcery, where he begins to learn the way of magic. Soon he finds that this world is being threatened by the Ancient One's old student, Caecilius. Thank you. With the help of the other sorcerers, Strange must protect our world from the mystical threats that could destroy it. Doctor Strange is directed by Scott Derrickson, stars Benedict Cumberbatch, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Rachel McAdams, Benedict Wong, Tilda Swinton, and Mads Mikkelsen.
Wow.
So you liked it.
I had fun with this.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, Duke, we talked off air a couple of weeks ago, and it's like, okay, the various personas of Benedict Cumberbatch.
I had some trepidation going in. The same trepidation I had when Robert Downey Jr. was announced as Iron Man, because although he looks the part, I wasn't sure Cumberbatch could really pull it off, in part because while he's a great actor, he is, for me, kind of a Jimmy Stewart kind of great, where he doesn't really play a broad range. You've got Sherlock. You had the Star Trek movie, which was Space Sherlock. You had the Alan Turing movie, which was Gay Sherlock. And so I was afraid this was just going to be Magic Sherlock. But I thought he did a great job, and I think rather it was the direction or the script writing or his prowess as an actor, they did a very good job of making him likable because he is
He's arrogant.
Right, but a lot of times in both comics and in movies and TV, when they try to make a character human, to give him flaws, they don't just make him arrogant. They make him, if I can use the word, an ass, Yeah. And I was afraid that they might have gone that far overboard with it. But there were some very human, very friendly moments where at the beginning where he is likable. You can see how he's arrogant and how he reacts the way he does.
Too.
Yeah, exactly. So that was good for me. And then I think for me, the third thing about this movie, the Marvel movies have had a weakness with the villains. The villains have been very cardboard cutout and not really the thing of the movie. And this one, although the same sort of critiques could be made, he had the villain. Who's the actor who played
Mads Mikkelsen?
Yeah. He had a good scene about halfway through the movie where he's sort of in chains. Doctor Strange has him temporarily on the ropes, or as I said, in the chains. And he gives a little bit of a monologue that explains his thought process and why he's doing what he's doing. And that really, I think, brings out the character a little bit. So it's not quite as weak as Christopher Eccleston was in the Thor movie, where he was just sort of there, doing bad things because he's a bad guy. You really sort of believed that what he was doing, and you almost like, geez, I can see that. Yeah, I can see why you would want to end the universe.
And the early press on this made me a little wary because of the Ancient One
Yep.
was in the comics Asian.
Yep.
But and of course, oh my God, Tilda Swinton's playing it. But that one line of dialogue
Forget what you know.
that or come from a Celtic background.
Oh, yes, yep.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Yep.
So then, okay, great. So
Yep.
that was kind of
She totally worked for me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
was
that,
great.
that was
Yeah.
the thing. If she were, it was portrayed that, oh my, she's playing an Asian character. And of course, we've had a lot of the quote unquote whitewashing of Hollywood.
Yep.
She did this so well. And again,
She was great.
you see the layers.
And they
with
did
this.
a really good job with Benedict Wong's character, because in the comics, Benedict Wong's character plays Wong, who is more of a servant character.
Major domo kind of,
Yep.
yeah.
And this one, they gave him so much more as a character. They made him funny. They made him like more as a obstacle in Strange's way to learn more, and who can also teach him, because without spoiling the ending, Doctor Strange doesn't fully become the Sorcerer Supreme yet, and Benedict Wong's there to be like, we learn this together. We're partners now, more than the other, which I thought was a really good ending for. Without spoiling anything, there's
Yeah. Anyone stand out for you, John? Anything that?
As regards to performances,
Yeah,
or-
I mean,
yeah, I really liked Tilda Swinton. I thought she did a great job. Cumberbatch did well. Overall, we haven't even talked about Chiwetel.
Yeah, Chiwetel
Ejiofor
was
as
great.
Baron
Ejiofor,
Mordo. Like,
yeah.
I think what they're going to do with that character is going to be really interesting down the road.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
excited to see.
There's a little bit of a quick turn there at the end, but it set it up well. And
Yeah.
I think you're right that when you get this far into a review and you're just now mentioning him, that really speaks to how good the movie was.
Yeah. And
'Cause usually he's the best thing about any movie he's in.
what's really cool with it, like you mentioned, there's a turn, and I think how strong Mads was for the villain was that with the turn with Chiwetel, because if you follow the comics, you know where his character's going, that it sets up more of a stronger villain for the next movie, because because like with all Marvel movies, they either kill off the villain or it's nothing. And this one, you're like, oh, you kept him, so that means you might be rooting for him near like the next movie, which I thought was really strong of them to do.
And he does it pretty well, I think, in that there are, when you look back, some little clues that you can think that it's, his exuberance and devotion to the Ancient One could be a matter of, the lady doth protest too much. When he makes that turn at the end, you can sort of see those little clues that were dropped. But still, it was a little abrupt. But
I think
they only had about a couple minutes left in the movie at that point.
I think with his, because they even mentioned that his conscience is so strong that the reason why he turns is kind of because they kind of mentioned that he, even before the turn, like how he's just like, no, this is what we were supposed to do, and then when he finds out that they do the opposite of that, he's just like, everything I've known is broken down.
And it's interesting because if you're aware of the creator of Doctor Strange, Steve Ditko, and that was one little fanboy moment I had at the end credits where it says, based on the Marvel comics by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. I would have preferred to have just seen created by Steve Ditko, or even, comics by Ditko and Lee. But Steve Ditko, is very famously into objectivism in viewing the world in blacks and whites. And so that character really, in that moment, really takes on a Ditko kind of a reaction where, this is right, you're doing it wrong, bang, I'm done. Just like the way he walked off of Spider-Man. It's got to fit the ethics and the morals, which I believe in, and if not, bang, I'm out of here.
And I think to go with the comics, to transition to another, what I think was an amazing part of this movie was the effects and the magic sequences how they took. I've only seen panels, like a few panels from Doctor Strange, especially the really trippy 70s Doctor Strange, and they pulled it off when they go through, like, there's many universes that they could go through in about 2 minutes. That's just crazy.
Yep. And if you're just tuning in here to WMPG, you've got Cinema Hits and Misses. We're talking about Doctor Strange, and if you want to join the conversation, we're live until 8:30 at 780-4909. That's 780-4909.
Yeah. Well, I thought the visuals were just fantastic. The Other Realms really looked like a panels right out of a Steve Ditko comic book. They did a great job with that. The city where it bends and folds in on itself, that was just amazing to see. Although we saw a little bit about that in the preview, so we kind of knew what to expect there.
And, so I was thinking for people who either loved or hated Inception, that might be something either you love or hate. But to see that on a big screen, going to your earlier question, do I spend my money? Do I spend my money for this?
I think this is well.
This is well, and actually Ryan would up the ante, I think.
I started 3D IMAX, and my God, if you if you want to pay the money or just see an experience, this movie is so worth it in 3D IMAX.
Sacco's the only place to see
Sacco's
that,
the only
right?
place to see it.
How much is it?
I pre-ordered mine, so it was 16, but I think it's like 15 or 13 just with
Matinee,
tax.
right?
Yeah, matinee.
They must give you a break in the popcorn at that price.
And I sat on the side, but if I sat in the middle, it would have been like there's three main sequences that are shot in IMAX 3D. That majority of it's shown in the trailers. The Inception like bending in, and it's amazing. When I went to see it with John, we saw it in standard first, and there's one fight sequence that I got a bad headache just because of everything spinning, and I was worried that I saw it in 3D that it would be a headache again. But actually, since everything's in 3D, you can focus more on everything. So the headache I didn't have one, and it was definitely worth it. There's not many movies that are worth seeing in 3D and IMAX, and this is definitely one.
Do you need the glasses for that?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think another thing that was great is how they handled magical combat. Now, I remember I think it was Scott Derrickson. He said we're not going to do just beams blasting at each other. How they handled, they weaponized spells and
no wands.
Yeah, and they they would give enhanced armor. Mordo had those boots where he jumped around when they're doing the training thing, socks Strange in the jaw. Just the way they handled that, to make it different, make it fresh, isn't just this is just a fist fight, or this is just what Harry Potter kind of is sometimes, just a blast fight. It truly made it its own, and I think that's why it stands out against some other Marvel movies.
I love the cape. To me, forget Doctor Strange. The cape should join the Avengers.
Yeah, there is something about a cape, and the interdimensional. So when you have the planes changing and the dimensions changing, the fighting scenes just take on that extra element. And I can imagine when Doctor Strange is doing his spells, that extra element of the circles
the
expanding
visual,
out must have been pretty fantastic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was even the early on of when the Ancient One shows him the magic, and it's just you see the plane between the three-dimensional plane as if it would be there, you can visualize how close it'd be, and it's just there, and it's I really wish that was real. But yeah.
So for listeners who have seen the Marvel movies, and there's probably about 30 of them now, where would you put Doctor Strange in the pantheon of Marvel movies?
See, I like this one because it's an outsider. So, I mean, mine.
It didn't feel
I'm a Guardians of the Galaxy girl, and because of the
and I
outside,
love the trailer for that too.
Yeah.
That was in this movie.
I mean, when I look at it, all right, is the story there? Is the casting there? Are the visuals there? This rings all three notes. So I won't nail down, but I would say my top 5.
Yeah, I would separate it just because how it's an origin story. Out of the origin stories of the first of all the Avengers movies, I would put number 5. Just because Guardians was so good. Iron Man, the first Iron Man was really good, but it's it's up there because it's so different. It didn't feel like a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
John.
Yeah, man, I haven't really thought about this too much. 'Cause, it's hard to compare it. Like,
Top 10 probably.
yeah, I know. I mean, it's definitely, I think, like the way lately that Marvel's been doing, like with stylizing their films, like how some could say that Winter Soldier like feels like a political threat, like espionage thing. Ant-Man feels like a heist film. The way that Marvel's been doing that, like I've been really enjoying that so far. So that's like what makes those like elevated more. And so Doctor Strange has like its own style for sure. Like and obviously it takes it like right out of the comics at some point. It's up there for me. I haven't really given a number. I don't like giving numbers to things, but I'd have to get back to you on that. But it's definitely up there in terms of the Marvel films.
All right,
I would agree, top 5 anyway, at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I really think this movie might win an Academy Award. And you might say, well, for what? For effects? Yeah. For acting? Well, probably not. It's not the kind of movie that would get that. But the makeup,
performances are up there.
they were.
They
But
are.
I was impressed with the makeup. The scars on his hands, they looked really amazing and lifelike.
And
And,
they
that's
kept it
really a tricky thing to do.
They kept it through for the full movie too.
Yeah.
You could tell like, oh, you just see at the beginning. It was like till the end that you saw that.
It wasn't one scene to show his hands are scarred, and then the rest of them, you can see the cinema sins coming.
Well,
but
And even the impact of the dark magic.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
on his on their faces was.
So there was a dimensional to it. There was a light to it that moved with him. So, so for me, this hit on a lot of notes. And
I'm going to go ahead and predict this will get at least 2 Academy Awards for special effects and for makeup.
To go
And
like,
for the cape.
For more like specifics and stuff, I enjoyed the score for it. I think John and I talked about how Marvel movies don't really have a theme.
No Superman kind of theme.
Yeah, this one kind of, they took the mystical sound. They used a lot of harpsichord in their score, which I thought was really cool because you don't normally hear a harpsichord or like a different sound in Marvel movies, so I thought that worked really well.
There's a great video out there on YouTube called The Marvel Symphonic Universe, which talks about those things, and I highly recommend it if you're interested in film scores, because they not only do they talk about like how Marvel doesn't really have like a theme of its own besides maybe the Avengers and this, but also like how a lot of films they kind of like rip off each other through like temp music. Directors be like, I want it to sound like this, but don't copy it, but like make it sound like this.
Yeah. And while we have a couple minutes left, I want to give voice to another movie that's out there for a potentially different audience.
Yes.
That Ryan saw that.
For a very brief, what I have. So when sorry,
You saw Trolls.
I saw Trolls, and as a brief, really brief synopsis, after many years of solitude and peace, a community of song-loving trolls are attacked by a wicked creature called a Bergen that wish to eat the trolls in order to feel happy. When her friends are taken to Bergen Town, it's up to Princess Poppy to go on a quest to save them with the help of her pessimistic friend Branch. And it is directed by Mike Mitchell, and it stars Anna Kendrick and Justin Timberlake.
Means Anna Kendrick.
Yes. As a brief review, it for families needing something to see this weekend, I highly recommend it. Although the story, like how I quickly read it, is very childlike. It is a fun movie to see. The music.
It is animated.
It's
right?
animated. The music is fantastic. It's a mix. It's a little jukebox musical. There are covers of songs like True Colors, September, Clint Eastwood by Gorillaz, and original music, which is all written by Justin Timberlake. Yes.
You got a couple great vocalists there between Anna Kendrick and Justin Timberlake.
And also Zooey Deschanel's in it, and there's a few Gwen Stefani, James Corden, the duo Iconopop have parts in it, and just for the music and the animation, I was telling Don and John that they went very into detail about the textures of everything, and everything has like a very felt texture. So even though you know it's animated, you could feel like, oh, that's real. Like you can touch that, and it's funny. There's a lot of like jokes that will go above kids' heads that I felt work well when adults have to bring their kids to go see. And it's a fun movie that I think kids will really enjoy.
So, I mean, we've had a couple weeks where we've had movies not happy, but I think we've had 3 here that varying audiences would enjoy.
Absolutely.
And we got it in a half hour because we're here at 8:30. And so for Duke, Ryan, John, this is Dawn signing off. Next week, Gail and Terry's have a couple movies, maybe Arrival in there. It might be some indie films. Tune in next week to see live from 8 to 8:30. In the meantime, Between the Notes coming up with Justine.